Thank you, Adva. For our next series of interviews, we're going to be looking at the role of technology and innovation as a partner to global development, kicking off with a conversation on technology and education led by Alan Robbins. So I'll invite Alan to the stage.
Thank you, Kate. And I'm going to turn around now and invite to the stage Vanessa Smith, who is the president of ServiceNow.org, and Jemina Bernard, who is the president and COO of Teach for America. Whichever one you like, one of these three here. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us both. It's such a busy week here. There's been so much going on, but one of the things that happened this week was the Summit for the Future. And, I think there's so many things that's about, making the world a better place for generations to come. And I think one way that happens that we can all really sympathize with and support is through better education. So that's what we're doing here today. I think that there's probably mixed news on this. None of the SDG 4 indicators or as a whole, they're not doing so hot. But there's probably some good things to come around. So I want to ask you, Jemina, can you start just by giving a sense of the state of sort of education and global education in the U.S. and abroad?
Sure. So thanks for the question. Thanks for the opportunity. And I'll largely focus on the U.S. since I'm Teach for America, but Teach for America is part of the global Teach for All network, of which there are over 60 member countries. So much of what we experience and talk about here at Teach for America is true for many of our member countries across the world. And so, the headline is the macro challenge that we are all working towards hasn't changed, right? So talent and potential are equally distributed across every child, in every community, in every part of the world. But opportunity is not, right? Far too much, it is just the truth that the opportunity to attain an excellent education is really driven by the zip code that one is born into, the income that one's family is making, and or their racial background, right? And so I'm going to say a little bit more about challenges, but I do want to say, to your point, we believe at Teach for America and Teach for All, this is a solvable problem, right? So we are incredibly hopeful and optimistic that this is a solvable problem. So as you might imagine and probably have read, the global pandemic really exacerbated all of that, right? And so we're talking about, we are still working incredibly hard to have our students who are growing up in low-income communities throughout the country recover from devastating learning loss. Kids are not coming back to school in the kinds of numbers that they were, right? So chronic absenteeism. Educators are increasingly burnt out. The ability to attract people into the educator workforce is incredibly challenging. That said, we at Teach for America are seeing real upside on that front, and we are actually coming off of our second year of growth in terms of recruiting people into the teacher force in particular. And so now to the solvability of the problem, if you will. At the end of the day, we believe there is no silver bullet, no singular solution, but as is the case in every industry, right? It takes extraordinary leadership, right, to get in the arena, to work towards really understanding the root causes of these problems, and then putting their talent and putting their entrepreneurialism behind solving the problem, right? And so that is what our bread and butter is at Teach for America and Teach for All, frankly, right? And so we are in the business of, and now at Teach for America, nearly 35 years, we're in the business of recruiting, developing, and supporting largely young people right out of college to devote at least 2 years to teaching in low-income communities throughout the country and Teach for All throughout the world. And it is through that experience that they get in the arena, they better understand the root causes of the problems and the challenges facing their students and their communities, and they fall in love. They fall in love with their students and communities and end up working towards solving this issue by staying in education long-term and moving into other sectors, which we believe is what ultimately it takes to turn the tide.
And I think that point about zip codes is so important because even in the U.S., it just matters where you live. and that matters what school you're in. And so when we're talking about the SDGs, we often think of like, oh, there's the rest of the world and the US, but it is all very, very much connected. Right. And Vanessa, let me move to you for a second. So ServiceNow.org, and thank you very much for your partnership on this event, by the way. ServiceNow.org works with Teach for America, and then also works with other nonprofits around the world to help them in their work. Can you describe a bit about what you do?
First, thank you for having us today. I have the incredible privilege of my personal passion and my work life coming together. At ServiceNow, we're a workflow automation company, a technology provider for Fortune 500 companies down to mid-sized businesses. And about 18 months ago, we formed the ServiceNow.org division specifically to bring our technology platform to nonprofits like Teach for America at scale. At the same time, I work with Jemina as the board chair for Teach for America in the city of Philadelphia. When we formed ServiceNow.org, our whole premise was that the not-for-profit NGO community deserves the same level of digital transformation as the for-profit Fortune 500 company has enjoyed for the last several decades. And as you can imagine, even the for-profit world, as they've adopted this technology, there's still a gap in terms of realizing the benefits from digital transformation. When you bring that to the nonprofit world, the impact is huge if you don't get it right. So we formed this team where ServiceNow is bringing our platform to connect disconnected people, processes, data, so that nonprofits can serve and address their missions faster, more effectively, and more efficiently through technology, and especially emerging technologies like AI.
I think there's a pitch there where if you are an NGO that's in need of some useful tools, I'll do the pitch for you. Reach out to Vanessa. I'm going to actually tease slightly a session that we're holding in a few minutes about AI for the SDGs. But one of the things that we found, we did some research on this. One of the things we found is that education is one of the SDGs that people think can be most positively impacted by AI. Are there examples about? I'll go back to you, Vanessa. Examples of technology or AI. I mean, it could be any other technologies where you see it's particularly helped on the education space.
Well, one thing I'll just put out there, because people think this first when they think about technology and AI, and when it comes to kids, there's the peril and the promise of technology. And I truly believe, especially when we're thinking about students and young learners, they're steps ahead of the folks of us in the workplace on their digital literacy, et cetera. So we need to think about the promise of technology and AI for good for both kids as well as for teachers like the community that Teach for America serves. So one quick example, I'll give a global example of how digital transformation and AI is being used across the globe in the education field is we're working with a very small profit based in Nairobi called Dignitas. Dignitas brings teachers who get certified and get into the classroom together for training and certification so they can do their jobs better. Once they leave this 8-month program, they're all going out to, in some cases, the big city, but in other cases, remote villages and what they self-proclaim slums to teach students there. And they have no way to stay connected to each other. So using our platform, we built a way for them to communicate best practices with each other on everything from student behavior issues to lesson plans, et cetera. So we're creating this online community, which is really great. The last thing I'll say about it, because I know many of you have a global remit, is that what we found operating in Kenya, our system required you setting up a username and password with an email address. And guess what folks in Kenya don't usually use, especially teachers, are email addresses. They SMS text everything. So it really helped us rethink our platform and how we reach every corner of the world by using SMS text as a way to communicate and interact and log into the platform versus the traditional kind of username password. And we're having some great initial results of creating that alumni community from this Dignitas program.
Or WhatsApp. Everyone seems to be using WhatsApp too. Jemina, do you have any thoughts about sort of the future sort of where you see technology going and helping in your work and bringing better education outcomes.
Yeah, I'll just quickly build off of what Vanessa was just saying. So we have a reinvention lab at Teach for America that helps us actually stay attuned to being on the forefront and not just focusing on the here and now, right? And so one of the things that they have focused on is actually developing courses to help both our incoming teachers, the novice teachers, as well as we run these AI hackathons for educators all across the country to really help them better understand the ethical use of AI, as well as, frankly, get in there and play with the tools in order to build tools off of AI systems in order to solve real world problems in their classrooms, in their schools, and in their communities. So we have done that now for over 2,000 incoming first-year teachers that are teaching right now, and for over 3,000 educators across the country and growing. So really helping to make sure it's about the AI literacy and the dexterity, not just knowing about it, but how do you use it to actually help you be a better and more effective teacher in the classroom? And frankly, how do you apply it with your students to help them upskill and be able to be prepared for the jobs of the future and be on the path for economic mobility?
Well, I'm afraid we're out of time. But I, and I'm sure we all, and our children and our children's children, all very much appreciate the work that you do. So please join me in thanking Vanessa and Jemina.
Thank you.